I want to tell you about the arrangement, because it sounds worse than I let myself believe it was. For 3 years, I wrote Felix Crane's academic papers. I wrote his pitch decks, his grant applications, his conference abstracts, and his LinkedIn posts. I wrote the speech he gave at his sister's wedding and the bio that appeared next to his headshot in the university's research directory. I wrote, in short, everything that had Felix's name on it, and nothing that had mine. Felix Crane was the son of one of the most well-connected academic families in the country, old money, board seats, a foundation that funded research chairs at 3 universities. He was handsome, magnetic, and genuinely the most charming person I had ever spent time with. Being in Felix's orbit felt like standing in a spotlight. For a scholarship student from nowhere, that felt like something. The arrangement, as Felix framed it, he covered my tuition gap, my rent, and my food, and I contributed my considerable intellectual horsepower, his phrase, to our collaborative projects. I told myself this was fair. I was good at telling myself things were fair. The truth, which I understood but did not say out loud. Felix had the name and the network, and I had the ability, and we had agreed without ever formally agreeing that he would front what I built. I called this partnership. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about several things. Harrington University's annual research awards were the most prestigious night on the academic calendar. Harrington was the kind of institution where a single prize could redirect a career. Companies took meetings, funding bodies noticed, doors opened in the specific way they open only when the right people decide you are worth knowing. Felix was nominated for the Edison Prize, the top research award, given for outstanding original contribution to the field. The paper in question was called Recursive Compression Models in Predictive Data Architecture. I had written it over 14 months, between midnight and 3 a.m. on a second-hand laptop, in the flat we shared. I sat in the second row of the auditorium. I wore my one good jacket. I realize now, been expecting something, some acknowledgement, some moment where Felix would make it right in front of everyone. I had been expecting this the way people expect things they have never been promised and have no reason to anticipate. I had been doing a lot of that. Felix won. Of course he won. The paper was the best work I had ever done. He walked to the podium with the easy, unhurried confidence of a man who had never seriously doubted he belonged there. He thanked his family, his department, his incredible collaborators, a word he used in the plural, which covered nothing. He delivered the speech in full. It was word for word the draft I had sent him 4 days earlier, with one revision. I had written "my collaborator and friend Damon" in the closing paragraph, and he had removed it. I know because I have always kept every draft I write. It is a habit I developed early, the way people develop habits that turn out to be more important than they knew at the time. I found out about Nora on the way out of the auditorium. Nora James was a doctoral student in comparative literature, the kind of person who made every conversation feel like it was going somewhere interesting. I had been in love with her for 2 years in the specific way you are in love with someone when you have decided, without telling them, that the timing is not right yet, and you will say something when the moment is cleaner. The moment had never been clean. I had never said anything. She was standing near the exit with her hand in Felix's arm, and the way she held it told me this had not started tonight. I stopped walking. I looked at them for a moment. Felix caught my eye across the room, and something moved across his face, not guilt exactly, more like the expression of a man who has been hoping a difficult conversation would simply not happen and is now recalibrating. He lifted his chin very slightly, the way you nod at someone you will deal with later. I walked to the car park. I sat in my car. I sat there for a while. I thought about the 14 months. I thought about the draft with my name in the closing paragraph and the finished speech without it. I thought about the precise way Nora had been holding Felix's arm, which told me she was comfortable there, which told me she had been comfortable there for some time, which told me Felix had known how I felt about her and had made his choice without mentioning it to me. I sat with all of that until it was just information. Then the notification appeared. It appeared at the lower right edge of my vision, white text, clean and steady, like something had been projected directly onto the world. Asterisk Oracle system initializing. Asterisk asterisk primary user confirmed, Damon Ellison. Asterisk asterisk calibration complete, commencing clarity protocols. Asterisk I blinked. It did not disappear. A second line followed. Asterisk you have been solving the wrong problem. This ends now. Asterisk I sat with that for a moment. Then I said, out loud in an empty car, all right. The fog lifted. That is the only way I know how to describe it, as if I had been reading the world through a slightly smeared lens for 3 years and someone had finally cleaned the glass. The same car park looked different. Not visually the same concrete, the same yellow lines, the same sodium lights. But the information in the scene was suddenly legible in a different way. I could see the structure of things, the relationships between things, the precise location of the weaknesses. I drove home, not to the flat I shared with Felix, to the room I rented in a building no one in Felix's circle had ever visited. I had been paying for it for 2 months without being quite sure why. The Oracle system, it turned out, had been preparing me before I knew I needed preparing. I opened my laptop. I had work to do. The first thing the Oracle system showed me when I looked at my own files with it active was what I already had. 3 years of emails, drafts sent to Felix, feedback returned, revisions made, version histories in shared documents, each one time-stamped and attributed. 14 months of nightly notes on the Edison Prize paper, in a folder I had named Working Files and never shown anyone. Audio recordings I had made during late-night sessions, my voice reading drafts aloud, a habit I had developed for pacing. Assembled together with the Oracle running, it was not a collection of files. It was a complete and irrefutable record of authorship. Every word Felix had ever put his name to had a paper trail that led back to me. I had kept all of it out of habit. The Oracle showed me I had kept all of it out of necessity. I spent 2 days reviewing the record. I was not angry going through it. The Oracle had made anger inefficient. I was precise. I moved the last of my things out of the flat on a Tuesday. I left a note on the kitchen counter that said, taking some time, not because I owed Felix an explanation, but because I had decided that disappearing cleanly was more useful than a confrontation he could reframe later. Felix called 4 times. I did not pick up. I noted that the calls stopped on the 4th attempt, which told me something about the depth of his concern. I submitted my first 2 independent papers the following week. Both were research I had been developing in parallel to Felix's work, ideas I had kept to myself, because sharing them with Felix would have meant watching them become his. With the Oracle active, I was able to calibrate each submission precisely. The right journal, the right evaluators, the right positioning within each publication's current editorial focus. The Oracle did not write the papers. I wrote them. It simply showed me what I already knew about how the academic system worked and let me stop pretending I did not know it. 6 weeks later, Sophia Reyes sent me a message. Sophia was a second-year doctoral student, one of the sharpest researchers in the department, the kind of person who read everything and forgot nothing. She had always found Felix's work suspiciously polished for someone who never seemed to actually think in public. She had noticed my submissions, compared them to the Edison Prize paper, and drawn a conclusion she was careful not to state directly. "Your new work is interesting," she wrote. "It reads like someone who wrote the Crane paper." I replied, "It reads like someone who did." She asked if we could meet. The academic community moves slowly until it doesn't. For 6 weeks after my submissions were accepted, the questions were quiet, individual researchers noticing the similarity in methodology, in structural approach, in the specific way certain arguments were built. The Oracle showed me exactly where the conversation was happening and let me follow it without participating in it directly. Felix noticed. He called again, this time at 7 in the morning, which told me he had not slept. I did not pick up. I noted that the call lasted 47 seconds before going to voicemail, which was longer than someone calling to leave a message and shorter than someone who had prepared a speech. He left no voicemail. The oracle surfaced something unexpected in the 5th week. My grandfather. Grant Ellison was one of the foundational figures in our research field. The man whose published framework from 30 years ago underlay most of the serious work being done in it now, including the Edison Prize paper, including Felix's citations, including the department's entire theoretical basis. Grant Ellison, the oracle showed me, was my grandfather. He had been listed in my family records under a different spelling of the surname, changed before I was born for reasons the oracle did not surface, and I did not go looking for. Felix's family had been citing Grant Ellison's work for legitimacy for a decade. They had been doing it without knowing that the student they had been exploiting was the man's direct descendant. I noted this. I filed it. I went back to work. Sophia Reyes turned out to be exactly the person her message had suggested, direct, unsentimental, and entirely unbothered by the political implications of what she was looking at. We met in a coffee shop 3 blocks from the department, at her suggestion, because she had correctly identified that meeting on campus created a record. She had already done more analysis than I had asked her to do. She had a printed comparison of linguistic patterns between my new papers and the Edison Prize paper, highlighted in 3 colors. "You wrote it," she said, not a question. "Yes," I said. "How much of it?" "All of it." She looked at the printout for a moment. Then she said, "What are you going to do?" I told her what I had already done and what I was going to do next and why. She asked one question at each stage, the kind of questions that are designed to find the point where the plan breaks. The plan did not break. "I'm in," she said. "What do you need?" I needed a second set of eyes on the documentary record, someone with academic credentials who was not me, who could review the authorship evidence and confirm its integrity. She agreed. I sent her the files that evening. She called me at 11 p.m. to say she had reviewed them. "This isn't even close," she said. "Every word." Felix's family moved in the 7th week. They commissioned an independent academic integrity review of my new papers, claiming, through a lawyer's letter, that my work contained ideas previously published by Felix, and that I was therefore in violation of prior publication protocols. They cited the Edison Prize paper as the original source. The logic required believing that I had stolen ideas from a paper I had written, but it created enough procedural noise to temporarily delay one of my journal publications and make 2 potential collaborators hesitant. Sophia's department head, a man who sat on the board of the Crane family's foundation, called her into his office and suggested carefully that her involvement with my work was professionally inadvisable given the ongoing review. She came out of the meeting and sent me a message. He asked me to step back. I told him I had already reviewed the materials and was confident in the integrity of the work. He suggested I reconsider. I told him I had considered it thoroughly. That was the entire message. No analysis, no elaboration. I noted that this was exactly the kind of person you want on your side when things get difficult. Felix called me directly for the first time since the ceremony. I picked up because I had already decided what I was going to say. He offered a deal, formal co-authorship credit on all ghostwritten work, a financial settlement, and a request that I redirect my research focus to a different subfield, far enough away from the Edison Prize territory that the comparison would become harder to make. He delivered this smoothly. It was a well-constructed offer. He had clearly helped preparing it. I wondered if he had written it himself or had someone else draft it, and then I noted that the irony of that thought was interesting and moved on. I listened to the full offer. Then I said, "No." He asked if I wanted more money. I said, "No." He asked what I wanted. I said, "I've already got it." I ended the call. I noted that the silence on his end, in the last half-second before I ended it, was the sound of a man realizing that the negotiation had happened without him. The Independent Integrity Review completed its comparison document 3 days after Felix's call. It was designed to establish the Edison Prize paper as prior art, to show that my new work derived from Felix's ideas rather than the other way around. In doing so, it produced a side-by-side analysis of the two bodies of work, with timestamps. A senior member of the university's Academic Integrity Committee, Professor Ashworth, the kind of academic who had been doing this long enough to know exactly what she was looking at, reviewed the comparison document and noticed that 17 structural and linguistic patterns in Felix's paper matched drafts in my submission history that predated the paper's submission by between 4 and 11 months. She contacted me privately. She asked a single question: did I have the original drafts? I had every original draft, with original timestamps, on a server I controlled, backed up in 3 locations, with email receipts showing them sent to Felix's address before any public submission. I sent them within the hour. The Academic Integrity Committee's formal investigation lasted 6 weeks. Felix's family's legal team could not explain the timestamps because the timestamps were on a server they did not control. They offered alternative explanations. The committee reviewed each alternative explanation and found it inconsistent with the documentary record. The Edison Prize was formally revoked. The university issued a statement describing material inconsistencies in the attribution of the submitted work. Felix's name was removed from the award board. The department issued a separate statement about ongoing review of recent publications. Felix's name was not mentioned in it by name, which was, somehow, worse. The startup funding round Felix's family had been closing. A significant investment built substantially on Felix's academic credibility was withdrawn by the lead investor, who had read the committee's preliminary findings and decided the credibility was no longer what it had appeared to be. I submitted my third paper the day the revocation was announced. I did not issue a statement. I did not speak to journalists. The work was the statement. Grant Ellison contacted me through a lawyer, then directly, within 2 weeks of the revocation. Grant Ellison was 72 years old, lean and precise, the kind of man whose entire manner communicated that he had been doing this, whatever this was, for longer than most people had been trying it. He was the foundational name in my field. He was also, it turned out, my grandfather, he said. The family name is yours. What you do with it is your choice. I said, I know. I'll let you know what I decide. He nodded once, the way someone nods when they have said the thing they came to say and are satisfied that it has been received. I went back to my desk. I noted that I felt something about that meeting, something that was not warmth, because the distance was too long and too unexplained for warmth, but was not nothing either. A door opening that had been closed. Whether I walked through it or not was a separate question, one I was not in a hurry to answer. Nora James called on a Thursday. I was in a meeting with Sophia and 2 researchers from another university who had reached out after my third paper posted online. The phone buzzed face down on the desk. I did not look at it. When the meeting ended, I turned the phone over. 1 missed call. Nora James. I looked at it for a moment. I thought about the ceremony, the way she had been holding Felix's arm. I thought about 2 years of conversations that had felt like the beginning of something and turned out to be the whole of it. I thought about the part of me that, 6 months ago, would have called back immediately, would have rearranged the afternoon, would have rehearsed what to say on the walk to find a quiet corner. That part of me was still there. It was simply no longer running the decisions. I put the phone face down. I opened my laptop. Sophia had sent the confirmation from the second journal, accepted, publication scheduled for the following month. I read it. I felt the specific, clean satisfaction of a result that is exactly what the work deserved. I started writing. I stayed late that night. After Sophia went home and the building went quiet, I sat at my desk with the window dark and the screen bright and 3 open documents. The third paper nearly done, notes for a fourth, and a folder of correspondence from researchers who had reached out in the past 2 weeks. 6 months ago, I was writing Felix's speeches. 6 months ago, I was sitting in the second row of an auditorium expecting something I had never been promised. 6 months ago, I had a name that belonged to me, and I was giving it away one draft at a time. I thought about the Oracle system, still running, still present, still showing me the structure of things with that clean, unsmeared clarity. It had not given me ability. It had not given me intelligence. It had given me permission to use what I already had on the right problem. The right problem turned out to be simple: do the work, put your name on it, do not give it away. I had been overcomplicating it for 3 years. The city outside was quiet. Somewhere in it, Felix was having a different night. I did not spend any time thinking about what kind. I saved the document. I closed the laptop. I had come in at 8. It was almost midnight. I had not noticed. That was new.